This is Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, an in-depth interview with Alabama's top political newsmakers. Now, from the studios of Troy University, here is Steve Flowers.
I'm Steve Flowers, and welcome to Alabama Politics. Folks, we're very fortunate tonight to have as our guest one of my good friends in Alabama politics, Kirk, Senator Kirk from here in Montgomery. We filmed this show at the Rosa Parks building in downtown Montgomery. I guess that's in your district, isn't it?
That's right.
We're right here in your district.
That's right.
Senator Hatcher was serving the House prior to moving over to the Senate about a year ago, and was reelected last year in the general election without any opposition, Democrat or Republican. He is very well thought of here in Montgomery, and he actually is the only senator from Montgomery in the state Senate. But he's one of my favorites, and I'm going to say one of because his two buddies who also represent the River region are two of my good friends, Clyde Chambliss and Will Barfoot. And so, I'm going to tell him, don't tell Barfoot I said you were my only favorite friend. You're one of my three favorites.
That's right.
I like to have these three guys on every year, along with Stephen Reed, the mayor of Montgomery, and because this show is based in the River region in Montgomery. But he's a fine gentleman, has a good reputation here in Montgomery, and I love to visit with him. We've been having a good visit prior to this show.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on it. We grew up, you grew up right here in Montgomery, and we've talked about this over the years that high Montgomery, everybody in Montgomery seems to be like it's overgrown, not trying to make light of Montgomery not being a big city, but it seems like it's an overgrown Troy or Wetumpka or Greenville.
Everybody knows each other.
Everybody's kin to everybody, too. Everybody's kin to everybody.
Yep.
And they tie you to your folks and your relatives, your ancestors.
That's right.
And your church.
That's right.
They tie you because the community is, and we were talking about
that's right.
Prior to this about Representative Thad McClammy, who was in the House with me and served a long time from this area. Passed away about a year ago, and every time I'd see somebody in Montgomery, I say, they would say, I guess maybe they've seen us together on this show or something. So your friend Kirk Hatcher can sure enough sing. He can sing now. Tell our viewers, I love to talk about this story when you were a little boy and your mama took you to sing when you were at your church. You can still go to that same church.
Oh, that's my home church.
What church is it now?
Pilgrim Rest Baptist Church. And that
you were a little boy, you were singing.
That was Easter Sunday.
Story. Tell that story.
And what Mama sent me, like most kids, I was about 5, and you were still getting your little your sentence, or maybe if you were really lucky, you maybe got 2 sentences to share for the Easter program, and you had sentences like Easter Lily, boys and girls don't be so silly, or something like this. But I was expected to get my little sentence, and I get home, and my mom and my grandmother.
You about 5?
I was 5, and they want to know. Well, okay, break out the sentence so we can do a little rehearsal before tomorrow morning. And I told them, and Mama says that I was playing with my toys when she came, just busy. And said, Kirk, we need to go through the little Easter thing. And I said to her, well, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing a sentence. She says, what?
Why you decided you weren't going to do it?
She said, what do you mean you're not doing it? And according to Mom, I obviously didn't respond. I must have been. So she calls our cousin, God rest her soul, Maddie Baldwin, who was in charge of it. And she says, Kirk's telling us he doesn't have his part for the Easter program. And I call her Mama Maddie. She goes on, according to Mama, she said, girl, that's because he's singing tomorrow. She said, that boy.
Did you know you were singing?
I knew I was singing, but I obviously didn't tell Mama that I was singing.
Who had chosen you to sing?
Well, I don't know how it happened. I don't even know how it happened. But she said, he's singing tomorrow. And my mama said, she turns to my grandmother and said, look, Maddie's saying this boy's supposed to be singing tomorrow. The funniest thing is she says, grandmama said, singing? She said, have you ever heard that boy sing? She said, no, I've never heard that boy sing. She said, well, I'm not going to church tomorrow. I said, he's not going to embarrass me. So, but I went there. The song I sang was, I Know It Was the Blood That Saved Me, in the key of E flat.
And you knew the lyrics and everything?
The lyrics, everything. They put me.
5 years old, what, had you learned the lyrics? How'd you learn
I learned the lyrics. I don't know how it all happened, but I'm 5 years old. I was a little fella for the longest time, and so what they would do, and Reverend Jordan at Lily Baptist Church teases me about when I first sang there at their church, and it was still this big edifice. And he says, you have to put Kirk on a chair, stand him on the chair, and give him a microphone. Yeah, so Mama, she goes, and they're hearing me, bellowing this song out, and said, well, when did he start to sing? Now, my mother sings, fantastic singer.
In the choir and everything?
Yeah, oh God. But I was 5 years old.
Is your mother still living?
She is, thank God. She's 80 years old. Still
what
runs
are you,
her
about
shop.
55?
57.
57?
Yeah. My mom still runs her little tailoring shop on Atlanta Highway and has done it for well over 50 years.
You were telling me earlier that she's really one of the last real tailors.
She really is.
Tailor.
That's right.
Not a seamstress, but a real tailor.
Real tailor. I'm talking about the guys we used to have around here, like Wilbur Pitts and Alfonso Colvin, and Ernest was doing some of the work, for Cunningham the tailor, and all of them. All of them are dead and gone now. And Ms. Lula Davis, who was doing it as well. Mama's, one of the last ones. So
does she have a store where people just come to her house and get
Custom Creations on the Atlanta Highway. She's been in that location about 33 years. But you do remember the Hub, right?
Oh, yeah.
She was a senior tailor at the Hub for many years with the Kahn family. When Charles Kahn and Julian were still owners there. So, they had some real shops back then. Azars was down here, Fanny's.
Yeah, they were before my time, but I remember they were
down here.
They advertised on television and everything.
Yep. In fact, Cunningham the tailor's location was on this spot.
Right here.
Back in the day. But she is the last of them, but quite a singer.
Do you know I've had some old timers on my show? I'm thinking about Jim Vickery, who was a former president of Montevallo. He's written lots of. He and I've had the girl who's on the Board of Education, Stephanie Bell.
Yeah.
Has been on, and she grew up in Montgomery, and they talk about all the old theaters that were downtown.
That's right.
Right around this same area.
That's right. In this area here was the Empire. Across the street was a Paramount, where the Davis is now, and down over on Monroe was Pekin. One of the conversations I had with Dr. Bronner not too long ago when we talked about the new office building going up in Centennial Hill. And I was complimenting, obviously, the incredible work he did with transforming downtown. But my one regret was that Monroe Street, where so much history unique to the black community was made with these incredible black businesses, that came online in the 40s and 50s, all gone. And yet in most of cities, you go to, Atlanta, you've got Auburn Avenue, Memphis, Beale Street, and on and on. I said, that's the thing that I lament, because those historical markers, as you well know, are very important for young people to see.
Oh, yeah.
And so the one thing I said, across the street from the main RSA Tower, of course, I would hear my granddaddy talk about Posey's parking lot, which was where all the folk would meet in order to get in the church station wagons during the bus boycott.
Did you ever meet Rosa Parks? Did you ever met her?
I did. Yes, thank God, before she passed, 2 or 3 times before she passed away.
By the way, we're in the Rosa Parks building, folks.
Yes. I just think it's very important for people. The value I have on history is that it provides context, and what we seem to be operating under far too much nowadays, which is why we have many serious conversations that turn into little sound bites. And that's because people don't have a context. Most people simply have not at least taken the time to learn the history, to just hear it. Because really, as Ecclesiastes says, there's nothing new under the sun. And so when I walked through the tunnel at the state, from the State House over to the State Capitol, and I remember some of the things you and I talked about with those statues in that hallway. It's so important to know these things, because it's so easy for us to assume that we're creating stuff when we're not. And I'm one of those individuals who simply does not believe in recreating the wheel. There's always something you can learn. Connect it. connect that. And I think one of the values I have on our conversations is that whenever I talk to you, I'm learning something. I always want to write you a check for something, because it's so important to get those lessons while we can.
You know, you mentioned somebody who is a legend, and history will. Dr. David Bronner has etched out a real legacy.
Yes.
Here in Alabama. Do you know in May he will have been head of the retirement systems of Alabama for 50 years?
Oh.
50 years.
Look, let me tell you.
Almost as long as you've been living.
Yes, sir.
I mean, and like you said, all these buildings, he had the foresight, but the bigger legacy is not just the office buildings the state owns and gets a rent from. These golf courses.
Yes.
I'm talking about they're not just profit making, but you won't believe the people they bring to the state.
That was a brilliant idea.
Snowbirds that come here and play golf.
Oh yeah, that was a brilliant idea. But he really is. He's such a brilliant man. I enjoy talking with him.
He is brilliant.
Almost as much as I enjoy talking to you.
He's got a lot smarter than I am.
And I've mentioned you to him. The value I get on those conversations, the way he's able to seamlessly connect all these dots from different things that have gone on, and the love I have for the people who can share history in a way that brings it to life, right? And because I'm a lover of stories, and to hear how you bring these things to life. I'm up here on Goat Hill, and the more I'm up there, I'm looking around to see the things that you were talking about, the things that people were doing during those days and times when people would leave a session and go and have a beer together and talk with each other and look, and then get back in the race and do what needs to be done for your community and your constituents. I do see some of that a lot more in the Senate than I did in the House, but I would be lying if I said I do not have some really wonderful memories and friends to this day there in the House on both sides of the aisle that I really have a deep love and respect for. So
when somebody asked me what I missed when I left the legislature, I said my friends. You know, you get stuck with someone 3 or 4 months out of the year, especially those that sit around you.
Oh yes.
And
oh yes.
But I saw the partisanship start developing soon after I left. It hadn't come in yet because everybody still ran as Democrats when I was still there. But soon thereafter, around 2000, I left in '98. The partisanship that you see in Washington had filtered down to Alabama, and I would watch people not even meet someone from a different party and not even speak to them. I mean, be House members and senators that would walk by, and just because they were philosophically different. See, we didn't do that. We became friends, and we liked have buddies, run and talk, and tell stories about old timey stuff, and that. But I'm beginning to see this a little bit in your group this time. I think Anthony Daniels is a good leader in the House.
Yep, he is.
And I think y'all have shown some camaraderie and working together in the Senate, especially with Jabbo Wagner and Roger Smith in Jefferson County. There's been all my life, when I was a little boy, I would come up here as a page and watch the Jefferson County delegation have a big fight the whole day long, just all day long. I mean, over some water pipe. They were going to try. They wanted to be this place or that, or whatever issue it was, and it still exists. I would sit there all day long, and people, my average person, Kirk, does not realize how much time is spent on local legislation.
That's right.
Our Constitution is so archaic that your county commissioners ain't got home rule.
That's right.
They got to come to you if they want to buy a garbage can.
Or a raise.
I mean, really.
Or even a raise for them.
Yeah.
That is something that we need to visit with. I like you just said, even about, I was thinking about Senator Wagner, who I believe is about 85.
He's 86 last Sunday.
This guy's so full of spry, and I'm envious of his energy and how he moves around. I think he said he may walk 3 or 4 miles a day or something. He's just, and then Smitherman, who's an amazing Energizer bunny himself, who rolls up and down the road. And let me tell you something, he is committed to his coaching life as well. Boy, that basketball team he coaches, and these are people who I'd say made out of a whole different material. Their sense of commitment to service, public
They've seen
service.
a lot too, Kirk.
Oh,
They have seen it.
oh,
I mean, they came through the civil rights.
yep.
I mean,
Yep.
they were part of the system during the thing where you read about
They were there.
Jabbo. His daddy was actually his daddy was in politics in Jefferson County
Is that right?
during all that civil rights.
Wow, wow.
And I
'Cause
shouldn't
he has
say-
doesn't he have roots in Tennessee?
Way back, but he
Way
was
back?
born and raised in Birmingham. His
Okay.
daddy was on the city council with Bull Connor.
Wow,
His daddy's name was Jabbo Wagner.
wow.
So he's seen the whole
He's seen
thing.
a lot. Yeah,
He's seen the whole thing.
86
I bet
years old.
Smotherman's seen it.
Yep, yep, yep.
What's Smotherman, about 75? Something like that. He's
Something around,
about-
yeah. From up in he's in what, Montevallo?
No, I'm talking about Roger Smotherman.
I'm talking about him.
Was he born in Montevallo?
I think somewhere in that area.
Okay, I thought he was from Birmingham. But anyway,
Yep.
but back to your area. Let's talk about your area here in Montgomery a little more. I want to always bring up. You talking about the guy who came over here from Atlanta, that's head of what now? What's the guy's
Michael
name?
Lomax.
Michael Lomax.
Dr. Michael Lomax.
What's his position now?
He's president of UNCF, the United Negro College Fund. But
I don't think there's a city in the country, especially in the state, that has more of a Morehouse connection. And I like to talk about this every time. And I've written about this. I think you're the father of the group, but every leader in Montgomery, Kirk Hatcher, the state senator, J.C. Love, the probate judge,
Right.
Stephen Reed, the mayor.
Right.
Stephen's brother was a Morehouse man.
he's a great
Judge
lawyer.
Greg Griffin is a Morehouse man,
Yep.
and the mayor of Birmingham, Randall Woodfin, is a Morehouse
That's
man.
right. That's right.
And being a media person, I was at Stephen Reed and Randall Woodfin's victory
Yeah.
speech thing, and there were Morehouse men
Everywhere.
from all over the country
Yeah, yeah.
who were doctors and lawyers
That's right.
who had come to go door to door.
That's right.
For Randall Woodfin
That's
in
right.
Birmingham and Stephen Reed in Montgomery.
That's right.
And it's just,
That's
it's a machine. It's a political, and I bet you there's not a city that's, but you get credit because you kind of the father of it.
Well, look.
You were one of the first ones that,
I'm certainly not the oldest one. The oldest living Morehouse brother we have right now is Reverend Thomas Jordan over at Lily Baptist.
you mentioned him. I'm talking about this actually in the arena.
In the arena of politics,
In the political
yeah,
arena, yeah.
We have another gentleman here, Frederick Spite, I believe is his last name, Speight. He's the senior policy director with Appleseed.
How'd you decide to go to Morehouse? Do you know that was Dr. King's church, of course, viewers. You all know.
Yeah,
Dr.
King. Dr. King
made the
graduated
church.
from there in 40.
It's always had a very stellar reputation.
Oh, well,
But-
he's still the major draw for students. Dr.
But
King.
what age did you decide you were going to go to Morehouse? What did you major
Oh,
in?
God, I was probably in 10th grade, and I majored in English and poli-sci
Did
with
you?
the intention of heading directly to law school, and ended up going to seminary instead at Emory University.
So you went to Emory Seminary School?
Correct. But I think I said to you once before, the real drive for Morehouse, since its founding, unique in the sense that it is the only institution of higher learning in the country that specifically focuses its energies on educating young black men. Now, we've had other students of other.
Are the women allowed to go to Morehouse now?
There have been women, I understand, over the years.
There's a female
handful.
college, though, it's sort of like a sister college.
Across the street, Spelman.
Spelman, that's right.
Spelman College. But the whole idea was that you knew that you, first of all, Morehouse as a undergraduate institution, again, not serving graduate degrees, but that you knew you had to go further in terms of your education, and that you, at some point, would need to go back to your home or whatever place you have adopted as home.
So that was kind of the
Often,
thing.
yes,
You
sir.
were coming to Morehouse to become a professor or a preacher or
some
a
professional
lawyer,
role or whatever,
Uh-huh.
but leadership was a part of the agenda all along. Everything you did was undergirded by that idea, and it's the idea of service.
So you went straight from high school. Where did you go to high school here?
St. Jude.
You must have had pretty good grades to get in and probably had a scholarship.
Well,
or
at that
something.
time at Morehouse, the probabilities was like 16 to 1
That's what I'm
to
thinking.
get in. But it's one of those, it's one of the blessings that I personally felt, I'm an only child, and it was really a blessing for me to be able to go and be at that place. Judge Price's son is a
Okay.
Morehouse graduate. Dr. Warner Pinchback's,
Right.
both one of his sons, his own oldest. And a part of what all of us share is that need to be of service to your community. Really, that is the case.
Let me ask you this, change subject and talk about something of current substance with the issue of education. Governor Ivey started about 4 months ago, and she made it a keynote thing that she was going to address education.
Right.
It's still not in its formative stage as to what specifically she's going to try to accomplish. But what do you think she's going to try to go at by improving education? She still wants to improve test scores, wants to make that her hallmark issue for this quadrennium. What do you read into what she's going to tell y'all in March specifically? What I gather she's going to take on this Republican theme of school choice. Now, you wouldn't be for that, would you?
No, and the only reason I'm not,
Or for whatever voucher thing.
I'm for school choice if it's not necessarily accompanied by public dollars, because I went to a private school, but I my folks didn't get public dollars.
Yeah, you had to pay for it out of your own pocket.
And here's the other thing, I wouldn't even mind the public dollar piece if it did not harm systems that are already underfunded. Now, the irony is, I don't know that we can use the language of many of these systems being underfunded, since we have passed over the last 2 years, by far, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, the largest education budgets in the history of the state.
By far.
And the last one, of course, surpassed the one before that, $7.6 billion education budget. But yet, the numbers of traditionally public school students has dropped precipitously across the state. So my question becomes, well, what are we doing with this money? So I would be interested to know, obviously, what the governor's agenda and vision is for education in the state. I'm absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know. She's just thrown out this broad-term education reform.
Well, wasn't she an educator by trade?
She taught school a little bit. I don't think she majored in education, but she did teach school a couple of years, not many. She harkens back to that. She taught for a little while in California somewhere, her first years, but then soon after she came back to Mobile and was in banking.
Right.
And then she became a reading clerk in the House for Joe McCorkey and all those black belt legislators. But I don't know exactly. Let me tell you, not just Democratic legislators are going. That's not going to be as easy a sell if, and that's just part of the education thing.
Right.
It's the quote voucher, school choice, whatever, parental choice. You're going to have a lot of those silk stocking districts like Jabbo represents. I'm not sure people like Jabbo are going to want to, they putting a lot of property tax into their Vestavia and Mountain Brook school systems. Yeah. I'm not sure they're going to be for that too much either. And those Sand Mountain schools ain't going to be.
Oh, by no means.
They're real proud of their schools up there.
No, and let me tell you, let me just put it this way. It's a conversation worth having. Anything that helps us to have a more educated populace in terms of our young people, what we can do better. COVID definitely revealed to us many of the needs, especially technologically. So we've got a lot we can do, and I'm grateful that I serve not only on the Education Budget Committee in the Senate, but education policy. I'm confirmations. A lot of the different committees of the 7 standing committees I serve on have something to do with education. So
do you know? To me, as a layman, and I don't know half about education like you do or anybody else that knows. I've never been in education. I've been in the legislature, dealt with it a little bit. But it looks to me like, and I said this even when I was in the legislature in the 80s and 90s, we got to put emphasis on skills.
Yeah.
I mean, in community colleges where they teach a skill, the jobs you see in your district right here out of that Honda plant, and out of the, and They're not. I mean, there only so many need for teachers. There's only so many need for lawyers. I mean, a college degree is good.
Yeah.
And people have certain talents.
Yes.
They should go to college.
Yes. Yes.
But the jobs are in
Well,
being an electrician and being a plumber and being
HVAC, welding.
exactly. I
we-
mean, they make a lot more than college professors do.
Oh, look, I believe the ships they work on down in Mobile, that
Austral.
underwater welding,
Yeah.
I think starts around 130 something thousand a
Well,
year.
yeah.
So I do think you are 100% correct when you say that no longer in this century is it necessary for you to have a 4-year college degree and more in order to be a success. There are people, because every person is not necessarily in love with the life of the mind as it relates to work. We need to work out using your hands.
Exactly.
And I think a part of what we did is we watered down the technical college experience and the value that it brought, right? And I think now what we're seeing, particularly here in Montgomery with the onslaught of, industry that's coming to the area, who are going to need people who are skilled laborers.
Exactly.
And so, they're hemorrhaging people all the time at Hyundai, all the suppliers. So I think
LPNs are
absolutely,
in
100%.
I mean,
We got to revisit that.
yeah, I think that if I was a legislator, I'd have to say, look, if you're going to look at education, let's look at the best
Whole thing.
for how it equates in the job.
Yes. Yes.
Well,
Now, before we go, please let me put a plug in for our good friend Mac MacArthur. He's got to come on.
we're going to have a show with him. Folks, we'll close with that. We got next week we're going to have a show with Mac MacArthur.
Yes.
Our good friend who's head of the State Employees Association.
Long time.
And our friend Kirk Hatcher here. But our time's up for tonight, and we thank Senator Kirk Hatcher for being with us, and we thank him for coming on every year, and I always enjoy visiting with him on and off the air.
Likewise.
We thank Senator Hatcher for being here, and we thank you viewers for watching. Hope you're tuning in next week for Alabama Politics. Thank you much.